Hi everyone. Today I want to look at a part of design history that is still surprisingly relevant: perfume bottle design in the 1930s. I'm going to use this 90-year-old magazine from my personal collection of vintage press as my starting point for the research. I'm not talking about the scents themselves, those are hard to convey in video, but the bottles, the visual and material language around perfume. It tells a lot about how glamour was understood at that time. And many of these ideas are still being used by luxury brands today. As I was reading through that issue of Harper's Bazaar, I noticed something undeniable. Perfume bottles were treated as miniature works of art. The magazine pages didn't just show a product, they presented the bottle as a collectible object, and they were priced accordingly. For example, a simple Yardley perfume in a plain bottle cost 8.25 US dollars, but a large Matchabelli crown bottle in molded glass and hand-painted gold details cost $53. In today's equivalent, it is more than 1,200. To put it in perspective, a 7-day first-class Caribbean cruise costs 135 US dollars. So one bottle of perfume could cost almost half the price of an international holiday. And magazines openly frame these bottles as decorative luxury objects. Let's read it together. If you're exasperated by friends who shake their heads sadly and say, "You ought to have a hobby," try collecting perfume. It is the newest mania and charming. The best work of the great French glaziers goes into them. As bibelots, they turn your dressing table into a shimmering vitrine. They are the snuff bottles, the samplers, the Sèvres of tomorrow. Sèvres refers to the famous French porcelain manufacturer, but it was also a generic shorthand for the most refined French decorative objects. So when they say these bottles were the Sèvres of tomorrow, they mean these perfume bottles will become the high art collectibles of the future. And bibelots is simply a fashionable word for trinkets, decorative little objects. So perfume bottles weren't packaging, they belonged to the world of fine objects, not beauty products. And when you look closer, the pricing makes sense. Many bottles involved hand finishing, and they used multiple material components: metal, fabric cords, wax seals, enamel inserts. Each additional layer raised the cost. They were also produced in collaboration with major luxury glass houses. Production runs were small and the molds themselves were expensive to make. So the bottle, far more than the fragrance, defined the price. In other words, perfume was the accessible part of glamour. The bottle was the statue's object. And this wasn't limited to perfume. If you look at the 1930s magazines, you see an entire culture of luxe mini objects. The dressing table functioned like a curated display. It's worth noting that this world of decorative objects belonged to people who were not affected by the economic crisis. These magazines reflected the lifestyle of a small, insulated group, and their idea of glamour was built on collecting luxury items. But the reason this design era still matters is that the visual language it created never fully disappeared. Modern perfume bottles continue to borrow from these 1930s forms. Even when translated into contemporary materials, the underlying logic is the same. The bottle communicates glamour before the scent does. And when you look at current luxury campaigns, collectible editions, and sculptural caps, you can still see the vocabulary that was already fully formed in the 1930s. But within that world, there was one major exception: Chanel. While most houses presented elaborate shapes, Chanel deliberately stripped perfume packaging of ornamentation. Her bottles looked almost like laboratory samples, a rectangular flagon with a flat label. This was a very bold position in a decade built on decorative objects. But Chanel could do that because her clientele didn't need ornament to recognize luxury. Her brand stood for a different kind of glamour: modern, minimal, confident. Her clients didn't require embellishment to feel glamour. To them, Chanel's minimalism was glamour. The house didn't need object-based persuasion. This range from sculpted crowns to laboratory rectangles shows how broad the idea of glamour was in the 1930s. But in every case, the bottle was intentional. Every curve, every stopper, every line of typography was part of a visual message. And that's why looking at the 1930s bibelots is not nostalgia. It's a way to understand how luxury still presents itself today, and where many of its visual cues originally came from. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.